has been delightful to see over the last few years. The physical infrastructure of Christchurch coming back, and also, hope dawning in that community as well. One of my favourite places in all of New Zealand, but of course the scene of tragedy and brokenness over a decade ago now. The rebuilding continues, and at the heart of the city, and in some ways at the heart of the community, the Christchurch Cathedral, a symbol of hope for that community, but the latest report is the rebuilding process has hit another snag. Some engineering reports has led to, cost blowouts. Perhaps no surprises in this regard. But joining us on the program now is the Anglican Bishop of Christchurch, Right Reverend Peter Carrell. Peter, kia ora, good morning. Thank you so much for your time today.
Hello, Andrew. Great to be here.
Now, firstly, what is the latest on the rebuild? Again, given that there's cost blowouts on just about anything that you build at the moment, something as complicated as rebuilding this beautiful historic structure, what is the latest? What are the reports that have come through, Peter?
So it's worth saying that for any construction project, there may be an increase in cost because costs simply increase. Wages go up,
Yep.
Inflation. You go to Mitre 10 to buy a bit of wood and it costs more than it did last week.
Mm-hmm.
The particular cost increase that we're concerned with at this point in the project is the other side of construction, when you've asked someone to build you something and the builder then comes and says, actually, it's going to be more difficult than we thought.
Yeah.
And essentially that's what we've found, is that in order to put a new foundation under the cathedral, when we've looked at exactly how that's going to happen, and that investigation through the last 6 months has included recognising that the foundations of the walls of the cathedral under the ground are not exactly as we thought they were going to be according to an 1881 plan.
Yeah.
And some new information about some aspects of ground conditions that we hadn't known. Remembering we were not able to get inside the cathedral till March last year.
Mm-hmm.
This has significantly pushed up the costs of construction as we best estimate them, and importantly has pushed out the timeline. So we were saying until October last year, we hope to complete by the end of 2027, maybe early 2028. The engineering challenge we face will push the timeline out to 2031. And in construction, time is money.
Yeah.
So we're now looking at $248 million to complete. We've spent a certain amount of that, but when we look at what we believe we can raise through funding, through the fundraising we're already engaged in, $26 million,
mm-hmm.
if the diocese would agree to a new injection of cash of $16 million, we're left with a funding shortfall of $114 million.
Gosh. Now, I've heard some of the summary of the engineering reports is knowing what we know now about what's underneath the cathedral, you wouldn't build one there, particularly a building of this size and weight. What are the options, though? Because, okay, you could just take a longer time to build the same thing, and as you say, the costs would increase. Is there also a talk about, hey, maybe we won't build it the way we thought we were going to build it, and I suppose still on the table, not completing, mothballing, like Coventry Cathedral, perhaps in its brokenness, a monument to what did happen in Christchurch?
So when we made an announcement last Saturday about the alternatives, one of them absolutely is we do not get, in particular, a line of funding $30 million by August. We would have to mothball the cathedral.
Yeah. So
that's absolutely an option. If we mothball because we cannot do $30 million more work on the cathedral, the mothballing would essentially be the cathedral as you would see it in the square right now.
Yep.
Quite a lot of scaffolding around it, quite a lot of plastic wrapping and so forth. We'd need to keep the weather out, we need to keep the vermin out, the pigeons out and so forth. And it would be quite a sad sight to look at.
Mm-hmm.
If we can do, and it would not be Coventry Cathedral, it would not be a ruin that you could visit or anything like that.
Yeah.
If we could do $30 million more work, we would complete strengthening the walls, and that could create, if we then mothballed, create a different scenario. I'm not the engineering director of the project, and I don't want to suggest that we would
No.
then have a ruin you could visit,
Hmm.
but we would certainly have something which would not fall over in a further earthquake.
Now, the Anglican Church, of course, this is an Anglican cathedral. Well, at least it was. But the
It
Anglican
still
Church,
is.
it still is. Okay. But the Anglican Church, not the only interested party in this regard. And there's been various views put forward as to whether or not this is a good use of the church's money, and for other interested parties, whether or not they should be contributing more or a proportion of it, and those sorts of things. I mean, complicated issues, but I imagine feelings pretty high in Christchurch on this at the moment.
We'll certainly to read the letters to the editor and the press, to read some comments on some social media sites. I try not to read too many of those.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily that good for my equanimity. Absolutely, there are all sorts of views out there. Pretty hard to tell. Like there are about 400,000 people in Greater Christchurch. What are the views of everyone, and which percentage they fall down on? Yes, there are so-called interested parties. There are views and so forth. But let's keep it fairly simple. We're committed to it being reinstated, but we have a financial challenge.
Yeah.
How will the financial challenge be met? Beyond what I've talked about, a $16 million contribution from the diocese and some further, I'll call it ordinary fundraising, $26 million, which is actually a significant fundraising amount for the Christchurch and Canterbury region.
Yes.
We are reinstating this cathedral because when the diocese, after the earthquakes, determined that the best way forward for this very damaged and dangerous building was to demolish it and build new, we were stopped in our tracks by legal action.
Yeah.
A controversy erupted, and a way to bring that controversy to an end, with government initiative and help, was to determine for reinstatement, and our synod agreed with that, and we are very grateful for a government injection of funds into that process and a council injection. That same synod had confidence given to it that the fundraising would be achievable.
Yeah.
Now that we're faced with, unfortunately, much greater costs, but still for the same goal of reinstating the cathedral, we're looking to all those who want this cathedral to be reinstated to assist with the funding.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Is there not only a will, but a means to this end amongst all the people who want it reinstated? I've had, as many people over the last 10 plus years have had, countless conversations about the cathedral, and it must be reinstated, it must be reopened and all that.
Yeah.
Every conversation like that is wonderful, but now really is the time for everyone to contribute, not to presume that someone else is going to contribute.
Yeah. Exactly. And I suppose there is still debate out there, and I'm sure it's in the press, it's quite, there's a range of opinions, but debate over whether or not the reinstatement means restoring a monument of hope which looks similar to the church that they remember, or restoring something which is a functional church and place of worship in the heart of the community. Of course, ideally, it's both of those things, but different people would have different priorities in that area, Bishop.
Yes, that's the case, but I don't think that quite characterises the track we're on. We've completed about a third of the work to reinstate the cathedral, which is as far as possible to restore it.
Yes.
But reinstatement is a term that allows for some new build aspects where, for example, bits have had to be taken down and so forth. Totally, the reinstated cathedral will largely look like what it was, and it will be a symbol of hope and of healing, and it will be a fantastic asset for the city and for the nation. It will be a church of worship, and it will be a place of contemplation and awe and wonder as people visit it, as it always has been.
Yeah, yeah.
We want a cathedral to worship in, a permanent one. As I said before, there was a possibility way back that we would simply have demolished and built a new cathedral, and that would have been that permanent cathedral. Now we're on the pathway towards reinstatement. Our role as a church is not only to worship in this reinstated cathedral,
Mm-hmm.
but to offer hospitality and welcome to all who come to visit it.
Yeah.
As we did before the earthquake, and as we will do, assuming we get to reinstatement, and we will do that as a contribution to the life of the city, the province, and the nation.
Although that road to restoration and reinstatement may be a longer road and a more expensive road in that regard. Just finally,
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, certainly. I suppose, a final thought on this: the transitional cathedral, sometimes known as the cardboard cathedral. This has been again a wonderful asset, a wonderful facility for the people of Christchurch. Does its transitional nature also extend to cover the gap, as it were? Is there specific plans for what happens next for the transitional cathedral, Bishop?
Well, one obvious thing about the last week is that it's going to be our transitional cathedral for a bit longer than we had thought.
Yeah.
What happens at the end of that period? That's a question we're in discussion over. So again, this is public news already.
Mm-hmm.
We had a discussion at our synod in September, and we set up a working group to look into the future of the cathedral, of the transitional cathedral. But we need to be pretty frank with ourselves. If we're to find $16 million to bring additional funding from the Diocese of Christchurch into the cathedral, we need to look very seriously, very closely at the selling of that site, effective from the conclusion of our use of the building as a transitional cathedral.
Yeah, and hey, particularly as the work on the stadium continues in the city, another big building project with cost blowouts, by the way. But as that comes into completion, the land that the transitional cathedral is on becomes even more prime real estate, I suppose.
Well, it's prime real estate if, I don't know, you think about a shop that's going to sell rugby souvenirs or a hotel that's going to host people coming to watch, the All Blacks play.
Yeah.
I think actually it's prime also in the sense that it's a part of that particular block of land in Christchurch that is going to be about 95% stadium land.
Mm.
And to me, look, it's not for me to tell anyone what to do with the land. It would just make logical sense if somehow it became part of the stadium precinct.
Yeah, no, totally. Hey, very much appreciate your time on these important issues, Bishop. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Andrew. All the best. Bye.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.